VeggieTales are racist, a cappella groups are sexist, and vending machines for abortion drugs on Yale University campus. Next in the Dr. Duke Show. Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Duke, and this is the Dr. Duke Show. Every week we cover those stories impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses across the nation. Greetings to all of our loyal listeners, and if you haven't done so, please subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or Google Play or anywhere you can access podcasts and never miss an episode. Coming up later, we'll be talking to our international journalist Alex Newman about some new vending machines at Yale University that the university is actually paying for that provide abortion drugs in machines right next to candy bars. Can't make stuff like this up, so stick around for that. But first, I want to bring in Katie Petrick from the Healthy Republic to cover the week's top stories.
I have shocking news.
You do?
The New York Times committed an act of journalism. They have a story that is basically they were able to feature a Louisiana school that is making headlines now for sending black kids to elite colleges, and they're not actually prepared. So they falsified transcripts to get these children into these elite colleges. TM Landry in Breaux Bridge, Louisiana, is a college prep school. They have about 100 plus students. It's K-12, and they've been featured on the Today Show, on Ellen, and they've had videos gone viral because their students are opening up their acceptance letters to Harvard and Yale and all these elites. Well, the students are coming from these low-income, kind of downtrodden places, and we're finding out now that these students actually aren't at all qualified to go to these universities, but Tracy and Michael Landry, TM Landry, completely falsified their transcripts, and now New York Times was able to do a full in-depth interview with 46 people, kind of bringing to light what actually happened at this school.
So a couple of African Americans tried to put together a school for underprivileged African American kids in a depressed part of Louisiana. We can applaud them for the idea. However, what they're doing is not educating these kids. What they are doing is preying upon these kids. They are keeping these kids uneducated. They are not paying much attention to their education. In fact, what the article goes on to say that day in and day out, all they did was really drill for the ACT. They weren't preparing these kids to know things. They were kind of getting these kids by rote to be able to react to ACT-type questions.
Yep, and Michael Landry, it seems that he's the one kind of taking on more so than his wife, but he was a businessman, so he's all about sales. And he calls himself a drill sergeant or a coach. And he actually asks the children to kneel before him to learn humility for 5 minutes at most. But some students who were interviewed say they were kneeling on the ground for 2 hours. So they're not learning anything at the school. And especially the elementary students are completely ignored because the upper students are being focused so much on studying for the ACT test.
Yeah, I mean, there are certainly cultish aspects of this school, but I don't think I'm going to surprise you by pointing out that the worst aspects of what goes on at Landry are the neglecting of the kids' education in order to socially promote them so that minority kids can take advantage of the university's rabid zeal to bring greater diversity to campus, even if that means lowering your standards, even if that means no standards at all. To me, the real criminals here, besides what abuse may be taking place at this particular school, are the university systems that are willing to, at the cost of everything, bring kids who are unprepared in, give them scholarship packages, and stand by and watch as these kids are exploited. What the New York Times also points out is the vast majority of these kids have struggled tremendously once they got to universities that they weren't prepared for. And it's this idea that we're going to social promote kids in the name of diversity and tolerance and equality. Then we're going to put them in universities, even though they're not qualified, because that's the diverse, tolerant thing to do. To me, if the universities went after qualified kids or spent some of their big endowments at places like Harvard and Yale to guarantee that some of these inner city kids were getting a real high school education before they came to Harvard, we could solve this problem. But the universities, to me, are the ones that are driving this. I'm not surprised that a huckster has decided to play upon white guilt to take all this money, with about $7,200 a year for this depressed Louisiana community to send their kids to the school, $7,200 a year in a depressed place to send these black kids to this private school where they're not learning education, but they are being trained how to milk the system. One of the most egregious aspects of this, Katie, is that they made up a whole bunch of extracurricular activities that these kids, these seniors and juniors did, right? They gave these kids credit for all of this social outreach, this activism, none of which they had done.
Yeah, and a lot of the students talked about how Mr. Landry told them to exaggerate, my father was absent in my life. Like, put that on the application. One student specifically, Raymond Smith Jr., he graduated in 2017 and got into NYU, and his statement about his NYU application kind of says that Mr. Landry knew exactly what was needed to be said to get into these universities. But Raymond Smith says, it's a good look. These colleges getting these bright, high-flying, came from nothing, turned into something students. I really believe that we all thought we were doing the right thing at the time and didn't have a choice.
It's a modern minstrel show, isn't it? I mean, you've got black educators manipulating black kids to say what Whitey wants to hear so they can get scholarships and admittances. Blows me away. How much money in donations has this school received by appearing on shows like Oprah and Ellen to tout how wonderful academically these kids were performing? How much money?
Yeah, they're saying they have received over $25 million in scholarships, and it's 41 graduates. Because this school is actually year-round, so it's $7,200 year-round, one parent kind of summarized it nice. I gave Mr. Landry my son for 6 years, almost every day, 12 months of the year. The longer these kids stayed there, the further behind they were.
I gave my kids, one mom actually pointed out, I feel like we've paid for nothing but an expensive babysitter. And I'm going to go there. How is that much different from what happens in the public schools? Instead of 6 years, $7,200 a year, you're paying $15,000, $17,000, referendums, property taxes, sales taxes, the lottery money to fund these schools for the time they consider kindergarten, from the time they graduate high school. And are the results that much better? Are we graduating seniors who can read at a senior level? No. Are we graduating kids that can do math at a high school level? No, we're not. Basically, American public education and these little huckster so-called private schools that have satellited around them, it's not really about that. That's exactly right. What you're paying for is not really an education for your kids in the public schools. You're paying for 8 to 10 hours a day of public babysitting. You're paying for social emotional garbage. You're paying to teach your kids radical sexuality in kindergarten, elementary, and middle school. That's what you're paying for. You're paying a lot of money for your kids to be babysat by angry progressives who insist that your kids are going to think what they think. That's true way beyond the Landry school.
Yeah, and if you just one more thing on this, the whole point of that school seems to be get that high ACT score. They have gotten average, they're saying, is a 28, which is a really decent score for the ACT. But it's that teaching to the test. As you said, they can't do math, they can't read, but hey, 28.
And Common Core and all of its related garbage, all this Fed Ed, is test-driven. It is not education-driven. You're not spending time preparing kids to think critically, then measuring how critically they think. You're teaching kids in the public schools as well to prepare for certain kinds of questions on certain times of very formulaic tests. The whole thing's a scam.
All right, from Louisiana all the way up to Massachusetts, where at Wellesley College, students are being urged not to call campus police if they're needing any sort of help, because apparently it's dangerous for minority students. This is an all-female college outside of Boston. And the group that was formed last year called the Wellesley Against Mass Incarceration, WAMI, launched an initiative and a petition billing this as a pledge not to call campus police. According to co-president Rachel Labes, she said that we, WAMI, think it's important for students to recognize that calling the police should not be taken lightly. The police are dangerous, specifically for Black and Latinx, or Latino, students and those with mental illnesses. Individuals with mental illnesses are 16 times more likely to be killed in interactions with the police.
This is absolutely staggering. You have university officials now telling their own campus constituents, i.e. your friggin' kids, that if something as bad is happening, they ought to think twice about calling the cops. So, and why? Because your next door neighbor who happens to be black may be offended by seeing a cop car. And just curiosity-wise, right? Do you have a lot of mentally disturbed kids at your university? Do you have a lot of low-functioning people?
Hillary Rodham Clinton did graduate from Wellesley.
That's right.
So, roughly 2,300 students, females, all females, who go there. 400 of them have signed this petition saying the same thing. Remember, it's a private college. They pay $53,000 a year.
$53,000 a year.
And
all women's college that now accepts men who think they're women, right? So you do have some men on that campus, right?
True.
And clearly confused men. But don't call the cops if they cause trouble.
No. And I took a look at the annual campus safety and fire safety report, and don't worry, there were 0 hate crimes in 2017. So
zero hate crimes. Now that's the statistic that matters, right? See, if you called cops actual police officers to investigate actual problems, then there would be actual police reports. And you wouldn't be able to get away with these sanitized numbers. Right? Given that every microaggression is now a hate crime, it is impossible, Wellesley, that you and you alone have managed to avoid them. You just swept them under the proverbial rug.
Yeah, and if you want to join WWAMI, one of their main jobs, one of their main purposes is to be pen pals to those who are incarcerated. So if you're looking to write some love letters to some people in jail, that's the group for you.
I got it. We've heard for how long about these crazy marriages when serial killers start corresponding with goofy young women, and there's this weird attraction that forms. Maybe that's what Wellesley can do. They can be the anti-cop school, right? And all of these Wellesley grads, well, at least the ones that actually like men, which is only a handful, they're the ones who could be hooking up with these serial killers inside of prisons, because apparently the cops are the real problem, not criminals.
Well, cops are problems, but, so are a cappella guys. At Princeton University, there's an a cappella group, all-male a cappella group called the Tiger Tones. And
is that like I got to bring it up, is that like the Do Re Migos? Is that like Here Comes Trouble? I'm totally zoning now on Andy Bernard. I can't wait for this story about a cappella guys. What trouble have they found themselves in?
Well, they found themselves in trouble because they sing a song called Kiss the Girl from Disney's Little Mermaid, and that promotes toxic masculinity and violates consent.
You got a lot to say, something about
The a cappella group have been performing this song for years, and they pick a man and a woman from the audience and encourage them by the end of the song to smooch on the cheek. Well, this group, these Tiger Tones, they look like clearly awful human beings, because sophomore Noah Wolstein, and it's a she, Noah, wrote an op-ed in the Daily Princetonian. It says, "It's more misogynistic and dismissive of consent than cute. By performing the song multiple times each semester, the Tiger Tones elevate it to an offensive and violating ritual."
Yeah, and so again, you have one complainer. And because you've got one woke little sophomore undergraduate who's taken 3 women's studies courses, all of a sudden now one op-ed in a student newspaper and everything has to be changed, right?
And what's fascinating to me is she is a sophomore, okay? So she's in her 3rd semester right now on campus, and she says they're performing this song multiple times on campus. She says, I've seen multiple times with, where a guy was uncomfortable, the girl was uncomfortable. My question is, how many times has she gone to see the Tiger Tones? She has a little obsession with them, I think, and that's what this is all about.
And this isn't that about. This is her taking one incident and expounding it, because this is what we're teaching kids. We're teaching kids that one tiny little incident that can be seen as uncomfortable for anybody now is expanded to be representative of the culture as a whole, right? And look, it's not like she took this from the local neo-Nazi meeting, Nazis up there in their white nationalists up there in their uniforms dancing and singing to this song. No. This came from Disney. If there's a more woke, idiotically woke corporate entity than Disney, I can't find it. And yet, what do you have here, right? A song from one of Disney's more nauseating child-themed musicals, right? Now that's got to go because one sophomore women's studies major is throwing a hissy fit.
Little Mermaid is a classic.
It's a classic, but you can't sing it anymore.
Well, you can't because of this, but I sing it all the time.
Charlie Brown Thanksgiving is a classic, but we're told now that because Little Franklin's on his own, right, we can't watch that anymore.
And at the same time, you can no longer watch VeggieTales
And you can't watch the VeggieTales, that's right. Explain
that
story.
Because VeggieTales is racist. According to Cal State San Marcos, they held their annual Whiteness Forum, and it's basically just a forum where students put up a bunch of poster boards. One of the poster boards said that VeggieTales is racist because the racial minorities are usually depicted as villains. They humanize vegetables using stereotypes shown in accents and racial indicators to identify people of color in the show. One student who worked on the project told reporters that the accents of the evil characters tend to sound ethnic, such as Latino, while the good characters sound white.
Go ahead and throw that picture back up, Mike. I don't see any white vegetables. Am I nuts? Wait, off the top of your head,
are you fruit?
Can you think of a white vegetable off the top of your head?
Well, there are varieties.
You're the one who works at the farmer's market.
Well, technically, you have white onions. Or
peel
white potatoes.
them. Okay, but go back to that picture. I don't see any of those little VeggieTube dudes that are white. I see yellow, Asian, I suppose. I see red, Native American.
All the green.
I see green, Martian. I don't see. Martian. I see purple. Where exactly is the whiteness in this? It's the accents, right? So in other words, unless you have an accent like these, right? Is that what they're doing on VeggieTales? Is it what they're claiming they're doing on VeggieTales?
Apparently, this is what's happening. Well, one of the former writers of VeggieTales responded to what this says.
Oh, good.
It says, all vegetables are part of one race, even though they are of many colors. They are all descended from the same parents, the Adam and Eve of vegetables, who foolishly ate a forbidden fruit.
Cannibalism.
The irony. All right, and screwed everything up for all vegetables descended from them. At least I'm pretty sure that's the theory. Or the story.
And all I got to say about this story is those complaining have demonstrated that they are the true vegetables. See what I did there?
I see what you did there.
Brain dead, get it?
By the way, this class, it's a communications class taught by Professor Dreama Moon.
Ooh,
is that her
Dreama
actual
Moon.
name?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure she changed it to that. It's called the communication of whiteness.
Sparkle. It's like she's a doula, right?
Yeah.
With banging the
Dreama
drums while you give birth to your baby in a
So
warm
calming.
pond, right? Dreama Moon.
Dreama Moon. Well, that sounds like it could be a drag queen name.
There you go. Drag
Which
queen.
leads us to our next story. Drag queen story hours for children are designed to groom the next generation. Direct quote from a drag queen. This story is out of Louisiana. The Lafayette City Parish Council had a meeting where Dylan Pontiff, or Santana Pilar Andrews, who's a drag queen, organized a story hour for kids at the Louisiana Public Library. And so he went to the Lafayette City Parish Council and told them.
But I'm here to let you know that this event is something that's going to be very beautiful. And for the children and the people that support it are going to realize that this is going to be the grooming of the next generation. We are trying to groom the next generation to not see the way that they just did. And just because I said that, you heard the little plur of people behind me. It's disgusting. We are trying to teach people to be tolerable, to be patient, to be loving. And the fact of the matter is that I'm standing right here and there's probably 50 people behind me looking at me with daggers, wishing that I would probably die in a car wreck whenever I leave here. It's truly implorable.
The problem I have with all of this is that all these libraries, all these universities are arguing that we're bringing in drag queens, right? We did the show a couple weeks ago where kindergarten kids were being exposed to drag queens. They were bringing them in. They were talking to these kids way too young to even understand what this means. And what you can see with this particular drag queen is it's all of that drummed up sense of victimhood, right? There are probably 50 people standing behind me, shooting daggers at me, wishing I was dead. There's nobody standing behind you. There's nobody in America that really cares one bit if you want to dress that way. What we're concerned about is, why should that be displayed in front of our kids? Why should our kids be exposed to your fetish, right? And that's another problem I have. We're calling them drag queens. Isn't that actually conforming to heteropatriarchy? I mean, you've got men dressed as women who call themselves queens. If you really want to stir up the gender, shouldn't it be men dressed as women calling themselves drag kings? I mean, let's continue to deconstruct the paradigm here.
And you've been saying this for years.
Years.
And warning, and people are saying, no, it's not going to happen. You're crazy, right?
Well, they're also saying that this is not done for any suspicious motive, right? They look you in the eye, the people doing it, and telling you what the motive is. We're grooming your kids.
Yeah, they don't even have to try to.
This is not about exposure or tolerance. It's not about none of that stuff. We're grooming them to accept, embrace, and perhaps follow a lifestyle.
Yeah.
Kids too young to know any better.
All right, let's go to the University of Idaho, where they have banned a pro-life, two genders post that was put on a student-run feminist blog. A female student named Victoria DeLone wrote an article stating that women have XX chromosomes and that she expressed some pro-life views on the university's feminist blog. Then, I don't know if it's Lisa or Liza Salisbury, who's the director of the Women's Center, found out about this story and pulled the story off the website. The story was about the creation of the birth control pill, and DeLone said she wasn't trying to vilify those who use birth control, but she said, hey, women should know the history of the pill, and she talked about Margaret Sanger, so of course it's going to get pulled off. So Salisbury, the women's director, admitted censoring DeLone in an email. She wrote her an email and said, feminism is the grounding philosophy undergirding the topics we allow on the blog. On more than one occasion, your personal views have been in direct conflict with one of the fundamental principles and tenets of feminism, that of choice. Your article is not only not congruent with the Women's Center views on the topic, it directly challenges them. As such, we cannot publish it. I'm sorry.
How dare you, a college kid and a woman, and a feminist. How dare you challenge what other feminists think? If you challenge what feminists think on a campus as a feminist, we're going to censor you. Do we even have to comment on this story? That as a feminist, to challenge the major tenets of feminism, even to suggest the possibility that there could be some hypocrisy in feminist ideology, means we get to silence you. That's staggering when you think about the admission.
Yeah, well, and the thing is, on the actual website, the University of Idaho's website, for this blog, this specific feminist blog, it says, "We are a collective of writers and photographers attempting to promote critical discussion on issues of gender and social justice. We want to highlight local events that are pertinent to these issues, encourage critical commentary, and engage with groups or community members that are seeking equity with the intention of understanding how our community is connected to global social justice."
So, you are a collective, put that back, you are a collective in the socialist sense of the word, which means you are a radical ideological homogeneity, right? You are the same views always or nothing else. You are writers and photographers, you are attempting to shut down through critical discussion any issues that disagree with your social justice stance. You don't want to highlight events, you want to censor them. The whole thing is a lie. It is yet another way of incorporating a kind of fascist worldview that says our social justice values are the only ones that are true, and if you even agree with us 95% of the time, it's that 5% that will get you banned, just as if you were an anti-feminist.
Yeah, and DeLone said she was upfront with them when she wanted to become one of the writers. She said, "I am the vice president of the University Students for Life of America group." So you knew what you were going to get, except it's one of those cases we have all the time where, oh, it looks nice to have someone who's, from the other side. It makes us look like we are, as long as they don't say anything, right? Yeah, so that's exactly
and the one part of the story we didn't talk about is one of the main things that got her censored, this young feminist woman, who just happens to be a pro-life feminist woman, is that she mentioned that women have 2 X chromosomes, right?
Yeah.
Right? Now look, the latest edition of my biology textbook, I keep up with that, of course. I got a brand new one from the publisher every year. Ooh. It says women have 2 X chromosomes, right? That is an undeniable truth of biology. It is an undeniable truth about our human makeup as women. And yet, to say that runs contrary to the values of the Women's Studies Center at the University of Idaho.
Yeah. And Salisbury said, hey, if you want to get published again, stay away from the hot button issues.
Yeah, if you who don't agree with us want to get published, don't talk about anything we don't like. There you go.
It's simple.
Hey, we'll be happy to publish you if you just say what we already said. Oh. If you just point out how wonderful what we said was, we'll publish you right away.
That'd be delightful.
Universities, people. Universities.
Here's another university. The students at San Diego State University just underwent
that school is a clown show when it comes to this kind of stuff.
Yes. SDSU underwent sensory experience to drive out prejudice against illegal border crossings. A group of students stood in a darkened multi-purpose room facing a dimly lit poster board in what is described as an immersive theatrical performance designed to fight oppression. And so as the students looked at this board, they were peppered with pictures of people protesting the illegal border crossings. And nativism, a calm voice says aloud from somewhere in the darkness. Prejudice or discrimination based on the idea of protecting the interests of established inhabitants against immigrants or those seen as not American enough. And so then they were bombarded then with all these other voices, and they had President Trump's voice heard saying,
"The United States will not be a migrant camp, and it will not be a refugee holding facility."
And there's crying voices, and they're just trying to get the students immersed.
So in other words, the Manchurian Candidate has just come to San Diego State University, right? We are done trying to logically argue with you why you should become an idiot, half-wit progressive. We're not going to do that anymore. We're not going to simply punish you for not believing we're not just going to simply censor you like they're doing in Idaho when you don't agree with us. We're going to compel you as university students, young adults, to have sensory reprogramming. We're going to put you in a darkened room. We're going to bombard you with images. We are going to brainwash you, because there is no other way to phrase this. We are going to take you and we are going to subordinate you to radical forms of highly psychiatrically driven propaganda in really sensory depriving ways, right? We're going to block you out in a dark room. We're going to barrage you with this kind of stuff. Can you imagine if you took a homosexual kid at San Diego State University. You put a group of homosexual kids in a room, you turned off the lights, and you started bombarding them with, right? Sexuality, homosexuality is sinful, right? You should be attracted to women. You do that, you would be, I can't even imagine. They'd shut the university down.
Oh, yeah.
They would literally burn it to the ground, salt the ashes so nothing would grow there again. But you can take typical American school kids, and you can put them in rooms, and you can bombard them with this kind of propaganda on a psychosocial level, and this is considered forward thinking. At what point do we just start drugging the kids with truth serum? Put them under, right, and then subliminal messages. Or every time teachers are lecturing on mathematics at San Diego State University, professors up in front of a big pit class of 200 kids lecturing about algebra, and on the screen behind them, you have like subliminal cuts, right? Don't be racist, don't be Trump evil, Trump evil. And the whole time they're learning their algebra, they're bombarded with progressive imagery, right? Like a kind of a Times Square behind the professors. You could have electronic billboards running around every classroom, reminding kids, right? Get out and vote Democrat next time you go. Do that kind of stuff, because what you're doing here with this sensory overload garbage, the way you are trying to manipulate kids on a subconscious level is remarkably close to more than indoctrination, abuse.
And you call it brainwashing abuse. They call it stepping outside their comfort zone and into the shoes of those who are struggling with oppressive circumstances.
Yeah, and again, understand what this is, ladies and gentlemen. This is the fact that, according to San Diego State University professors, anyone in the world has the right to be here. Anyone in the world already has the rights of American citizens and the privileges. And if you oppose anybody in the world's right to walk into this country at any time and to be treated exactly like an American, that's how we fight nativism. The only way to fight American nativism is to treat everyone in the world like an American and to give them everything that American citizens are due and owed. Right? Maybe we should do that. Maybe we should start with San Diego State University. Let's take all the public funding that we waste on that ridiculous clown show every year. Let's take all the student extras, the money, the money that's set by the state, the local community, the feds. Let's turn it right over to immigrants in Ecuador. All the money that we're spending on this, the pensions, the retirement plans that are just sitting there gathering money from the professors at San Diego State University. What if we took that money and gave them to the migrant caravan? Let's do that. Let's let San Diego State practice what it preaches.
That'd be a good thing to do. We'll see what happens. I doubt it'll happen.
It won't happen.
All right. I
can tell you right now. And by the way, am I wrong about this? Is the San Diego State still the Aztecs, or did they change that?
I
don't know. For a long time, they were the Aztecs. I would be surprised if they still are. But
if they are,
I'd kind of like it if they still were, because that'd be another point of hypocrisy we could attack them on.
It'd be delightful.
As if we need more.
All right. Well, we're learning in college how schedules and deadlines are interfering with Native students' concept of time. And this is coming out of the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Go Badgers. All right. Alpha Pi Omega sorority at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. It held a panel discussion last month called Native November, and they had several Native American alumni attend this and talk about the major cultural differences between Native students' life on the reservations and what they face when they come to campus, as well as the difficulty in overcoming these challenges. They had Gary Besaw, who's the Director of Agriculture and Food Systems for the Menominee Tribe. He came in and said that the concept of time itself is one of the barriers facing Indigenous students. He said time is perceived on reservations as a, quote, human approach, which emphasizes a balance, taking only what is necessary from the environment of peers. By contrast, American campuses are regimented. There are schedules to follow, deadlines to meet, and these are difficult and unfamiliar to natives. At UW, if you miss an appointment, you're done, Besaw said.
What in the world is he talking about?
I have no idea.
I love this. I love how it is now Native Americans who are propagating the myth of the noble savage, right? That everything you whiteys do, paying attention to time, right? Recognizing that there are certain deadlines and requirements of time every day, right? At some point, you're going to have to sleep. At some point, you're going to have to. This is all now a Western invention. Like the idea that women don't have 2 X chromosomes anymore. We've just pretended it's not true in Idaho, and so it's not true. Now you've got Native Americans actually pretending to be the stereotypes that white people have projected upon them. We Native Americans, our use of time is so much more environmentally friendly, right?
Well, and he's saying that their concept of time time is nonlinear and it's a medicine. Time is a medicine. It's not this clock stuff. And I want to argue that if you don't take your medicine on time, that may cause issues for you.
Time is a medicine. Let's see. Can we maybe substitute chemotherapy for time therapy? Can we do that?
It'll solve everyone's
This is so stupid. And so what you're saying now is, basically, because of this, we should hold yet another group, Native Americans, to a radically different standard, which means no assignments, no due dates, no semesters, no ends of anything. Let's do that. And once we do that for Native Americans, I guarantee you that silly white lazy kids who see what's happening with Native Americans, they get to not turn things in. We're not going to accommodate the one, we'll accommodate the other, right? Let's just get rid of time and deadlines. Education, by definition, education is a holistic thing for my culture. It's one of those things that by simply sitting and imbibing, you're educating. And when you grade me and you assign me work and you make me do things, you're actually impinging my view of education. Why not? Why not? And of course it's the University of Wisconsin-Madison that would take this seriously. Of course it's you, Badgers.
Go Badgers.
Yeah, go Badgers.
Okay. Let's head over to that interview with Dr. Duke and Alex Newman, because I want to know what the heck is Yale selling in their vending machines?
Alex Newman, welcome to the program. Good to have you on again.
Thank you so much for having me, Duke. It's a pleasure.
So radical birth control, including abortifacients, available just like a Snickers bar, only you have to pay for a friggin' Snickers bar. Talk to our audience about what's going on at Yale.
Yeah. I don't know whether to laugh or to cry, Duke, but yeah. So Yale has now no joke, no pun. They're installing a vending machine at the Good Life Center that will dispense. They call them the Plan B pill. The pill for flushing the baby out the night after unprotected or unsafe sex. And, as is well known, this pill often causes an abortion by causing the baby to go right through the system instead of being implanted as a result of this massive hormone overdose. So soon at Yale, they won't have to go to the doctor. They won't have to go to the pharmacy. They just go to the Good Life Center and grab some Plan B pills.
Well, it is kind of an ironic suggestion, but again, I remind people that if you're a practicing tuition-paying student at Yale University, you're as entitled to this stuff as you need to be. And the minute they question you as to why you need so many of them, they're delving into your personal sex life. And the minute they come to you and say, why do you need 15 packets of that? Are you telling me who I can and cannot have unprotected sex with? Are you daring to presume to tell me how I should limit? And then you got them, right?
That's right. And if they say, hey, you're a man, what are you doing getting all of this? Well, how dare you presume my gender, right? You don't know anything about my gender, right? Just because I have a deep voice and a beard doesn't mean I'm a man. I mean, aren't you hip with the times? I mean, it's just absolute madness. Like I say all the time, the inmates have taken over the asylum, and it's going downhill quickly. Well,
and the funny thing about it, and I was talking to my producer before the show about this, 2 or 3 years ago when there was talk about this, right, making these kinds of radical forms of contraception, abortion, let's call it what it is, these radical forms of abortion, making them available to college students in the same way we make sugary snacks or potato chips available in vending machines. I remember a panel of doctors were talking about this, and they said two things. First of all, this is probably a bad idea because even though it's a pill that can be taken this way, you really ought to consult with a doctor first. You really should sit down with a doctor, gynecologist, and discuss the ramifications of this, discuss the seriousness of the kind of medication you're taking. And two, the doctor said, well, this will probably never happen anyway, and it shouldn't happen, the doctor said, if taxpayers pay for it.
Is there a chance that making something like this so easy to get that, let's rewind, it's Friday night, you're at the university where it's really easy to get this. You know what? Is this as bad of a decision if I can go get this in the vending machine tomorrow morning?
Yeah.
I don't
more
know.
likely to party hardy, to drink more, to make the wrong choices. So
I think it's a very
and this is more
difficult
than,
dilemma.
just buying condoms. It's a medication. There are contraindications. So I think it really does need some counseling and monitoring more so than other types of contraception.
Yeah, and it's so sad, Duke. And one of the organizations that brought this about, I kid you not, they call themselves the Reproductive Justice Action League, right? Some kind of like superheroes off to ensure reproductive justice for everyone. And what they mean by reproductive justice is that taxpayers should pay for the mass murder of babies through abortion and for contraception and for everything else so that children can be convinced that fornicating is a good idea, and if they fornicate and problems happen, hey, the government will come and bail you out by killing your baby for you. No big deal, right? What's the problem? And that's what all of this is designed for: breaking down morality, breaking down the family unit, making sex just this free love, sexual revolutionary thing, no marriage involved, nothing like that. And we see the consequences of this now. STDs everywhere, depression, families crumbling. It's a tragedy. It's sick. It really is sick. And of course, Yale is not the first university to do this. Some of the others have already started this. And I predict that if this continues, it's going to become a regular thing at college campuses. And we'll all just say, well, we always knew that. Why shouldn't we dispense abortifacients on college campuses, right? Children are fornicating, and we wouldn't want them to be what did Obama say? Burdened with a baby, right? Goodness gracious, that would be terrible. So why don't we just have vending machines with these abortion pills in them? It's it's a sad state of affairs, and as I say in my article, parents and students need to be very, very discerning about where they send their kids to college, because this is now the status quo at these institutions. And, I think most Christians would be appalled at this kind of stuff, and yet this is the norm now at these elite universities.
Alex, thanks again for another sobering account of what's going on American campuses.
Michigan lawmakers have nothing better to do with their time than to want to ban fast food chains from offering gender-specific toys. Last week, Michigan's House introduced a resolution urging fast food establishments and franchises to stop gender classification of kids' meal toys. Of course, this was started by a state rep named Leslie Love, who's a Democrat from Detroit. She's the primary sponsor, and she has 14 co-sponsors. The resolution states, often, the designated boy toys are action figures or building toys, typically in primary colors, whereas girl toys are often stuffed animals and are usually in a pastel color scheme. This is a significant issue as billions of these meals are sold every year, and this practice can influence and limit children's imaginations and interests by promoting some toys as only suitable for girls and other only for boys.
It's a Happy Meal. And what we've done is we've made it the most unhappy thing in the world. We've got California now, I believe, who's moved to ban Happy Meals altogether. This shows you how backwards Michigan is. Michigan progressives, like everything you do, like your stupid football team, you're behind in all things, right? Get up, catch up with the times, Michigan, please. To be really progressive is to ban Happy Meals altogether, because you're pushing crappy McDonald's food. You're hardening the arteries of little children by putting toys with the meals. If you were really progressive, you socialist Michiganders, what you would do is just ban the Happy Meal. But you're way behind. You're rearranging deck chairs on the Hindenburg, right? I mean, for God's sake. It's already too late. If your kids are eating McDonald's, they've already been ushered into the patriarchy. They're ingesting all of those steroids that the chicken McNuggets have been fed with, right? We're turning them into all sorts of different creatures. GMO. Stop worrying about the toys. Get with the program, you quasi-Marxists, and just ban the Happy Meals. And then in a few years, you can ban McDonald's. And then in a few years, no one will eat anything except tofu. And then you'll be happy.
And maybe then they can focus on the crime issues they have.
No,
and maybe the
drinking water. No.
Who needs that? Just have some.
No, not this.
Have a Diet Coke.
Pure Michigan. Pure Michigan. How about that campaign?
The perfect summer is waiting. The perfect summer is Pure Michigan. Your trip begins at Michigan.org.
Our big concern in the Michigan legislature, right, is gender-neutral toys in Happy Meals.
All right, with that, make sure you head over to YouTube, watch us again, head over to the drdukeshow.com, listen to the podcast version, tell all your friends, if you could, hit that subscribe button on the podcast. It really does help us out. And if you like what you heard, leave us a nice review. That also helps quite a bit.
And that does it for us this week on The Dr. Duke Show. If you like what you heard, please share the podcast with your friends. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke. She's Katie. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next time.